Good evening, everyone. I'm Coakley Vincent, President and CEO of the Bridgeport Downtown Special Services District. I have the great privilege of serving downtown Bridgeport and supporting organizations like the Downtown Cabaret Theater, where we are right now, for our 11th live PechaKucha. It's the first one presented in two formats, live here, also for the first time at the Cabaret Theater, and then streaming virtually on our YouTube channel. This is our first hybrid PechaKucha. I don't know if anyone's tried that in their personal or business life before. Hybrid meetings are a fun challenge. And as we operate completely with volunteers, we hope your online and in-person experiences are very good. But we apologize in advance for any technical problems that might occur. I'm sure they won't, but if they do, thank you in advance for your thoughtfulness. Tonight, we also wanted to let you know about Bridgeport 200. On the next slide. Thank you. We wanted to let you know about Bridgeport 200. It's a citywide celebration of Bridgeport's 200 years of history, modern day culture, cuisine, and colors. I'm sure everyone's had a chance to sample some of that delicious cuisine from Chef Raquel in the back. If you haven't yet, please do. It's fantastic. Some of our colors, as you might see, this whole outfit came from the City Lights Vintage Shop. Beautiful necklace by Robin Gilmore, who runs the shop. So please check it out on the break or come back to downtown anytime. And so Bridgeport is known for innovation and individuality, and our PechaKucha reflects the creativity and uniqueness and diversity of our community. And we're happy to have this event included as part of the Bridgeport 200 celebration. If you're interested in learning about more events as part of that celebration, you can check it out at bpt200.com. So for those, how many people, it's their first time at a PechaKucha ever? Oh, great! Welcome, so many, welcome. Thank you for coming. This is fantastic. So you might not know that a PechaKucha is the word PechaKucha is Japanese for chit chat, and is also the name given to a simple show and tell format devised by the architectural team of Astrid Klein and Mark Dytham. And wonderfully tonight, in just a few minutes, we have Mark Dytham with us for our first PechaKucha presenter live from Tokyo. His story will demonstrate how far their invention has come since it was created in 2003. So just a little bit more about PechaKucha. Each city, so Bridgeport, has a license. I represent the Downtown Special Services District with John Swing, Kathy Marr, and Bill Derry from the Barnum Museum as our other organizers for the event, as well as Suzanne Kachmar from City Lights Gallery and Bridgeport Art Trail, and Nina Lesiga of NL Inc., and one of our fabulous storytellers tonight. Really looking forward to her evening closeout story. We work to organize these storytelling events to encourage networking and connections throughout Bridgeport and the broader community. As you'll see tonight, we have people represented from around the world. So it's really a great opportunity to get to know each other locally and globally. And today marks our 11th PechaKucha. A special thank you to Tina Sommers, who is in the audience. Where are you, Tina? Oh, hi, Tina. And for our current poster, you see with the elephant all the way at the end, larger than life. Volume 11, and then 3 other PechaKucha posters. And we also want to thank Darius Canara for designing Volume 3 and Volume 8 posters. Our next PechaKucha, I'll talk more about it at the end, but it'll be part of the Bridgeport Art Trail theme of reinvention and discovery. And it'll be held at the Bijou Theater just down the hill, around the corner, down the Pinky Stairway if you came up that way, on Sunday, November 14th. So save the date. And then one other huge thank you before I move on. I just want to thank Brian Cobb for filming us this evening. Thank you for your technical expertise. And let's move on to the stars of the show. So before I'm wrapping it up quickly before we get to Mark, I just wanted to talk about the 14 wonderful presenters that we had tonight. 8 of them will be presenting live here in the Downtown Cabaret Theater. And 6 will be presenting virtually from places like Tokyo, Japan, Calcutta, India, and 3 from California. Each presentation will be available on our website, which you'll hear a little bit more about. Mark shares his story. for future viewing. So in case you saw a picture or heard a sentence that really inspired you, you can catch it later. We'll have a 10-minute break halfway through, so you can grab more delicious food from Chef Raquel and speak to each other and connect, as is the spirit of Pechakucha. And those attending virtually may comment or ask questions on our YouTube chat, and we'll do our best to respond in the moment, but if not, after the fact. And all presenters' contact information is in the program that you either have a print copy if you're here, or would have been emailed if you registered for the event. Feel free to reach out to us if you don't have that handy. Happy to pass it on. So let's get started. A special welcome to our first presenter this evening, Mark Dytham. Mark was born in the United Kingdom and studied architecture at the Royal College of Art in London, traveled to Tokyo in 1989, and he and Astrid Klein soon established Klein Dytham Architecture, working freely across disciplines that include architecture, interiors, furniture, installations, and events. They have had many award-winning projects. Mark is a frequent guest speaker at international design events, has taught at universities in Japan and beyond, and in 2000 was awarded an MBE, Member of the British Empire, by Queen Elizabeth II for services to British design in Japan. Thank you, Mark, for joining Bridgeport PechaKucha at 7 a.m. your time tomorrow. Please take it away.
Hi, hello from the future. It's 7 a.m. on Monday morning here in Tokyo. I hope you can hear me okay. And I've got my coffee and I'm revved up and ready to go. So without further ado, why don't we start the slides, and I'll explain a little bit more. As the introductor said, I'm one of the co-founders of Pechakucha, along with Astrid Klein, and we're sort of bi-urban. We have an office in Chicago now and here in Tokyo. So yeah, why don't you kick off the slides? So yeah, I'm an architect. I'm based in Tokyo, and I have a day job, which is this architecture practice. As you'll see later, I have a night job too, which is Pechakucha. So we're architects here in Tokyo. This is one of our buildings. It's larger than life. It's in the center of Tokyo. It's in the heart of Ginza, the main shopping center. And it's a new headquarters building for Nissan cars, which they share with Sony. It's right on the corner, and it's an incredible building. And it is, as I say, larger than life. And it's always amazing when we go past the building in a taxi, and I think, did I build that? You know, it's really, really amazing. Architecture is a fantastic job because we always make things which are large or cause large networks. So this is a wedding chapel we designed. Last month, they had 65 weddings here. And it's designed like a wedding veil. When the groom picks up the bride's veil for a kiss, they have this massive veil rises up. It's perforated with 4,500 holes. So it really feels like a piece of lace. So 65 people last month, over 10,000 people have been married here since the wedding chapel opened. So we have this really large effect on not only the environment, but on people and communities too. We also ran a big art space in Tokyo called Super Deluxe. And this is where Pechakucha was born. And we felt at the dawn of digital photography nearly 20 years ago, and Keynote on the Mac, you know, why don't we start showing and sharing, allowing people to show and share what they do? And we started this evening called Pechakucha. And the problem is that, like most architects, we talk too much. And we wanted to get many people down there to show and share what they do, architecture, design, and they talk too much. So we came up with this very simple format of 20 images, 20 seconds each, 400 seconds. The next presenter's on, and then you go and have a chat with them at the bar, thinking and drinking. And it was also about discovering hidden heroes. This guy is 63. He's never spoken in public before, and he builds some of the construction fences around the tallest buildings being built in Tokyo. And he's got a fantastic story that no one's ever heard of. And it was really amazing to pull these stories out from the city, these hidden heroes. So this one-off event in Tokyo, I stayed in Tokyo for 2 or 3 years, and it started to spread around the world. And today, amazingly, we're in 1,261 cities. And of course, one of our favorite cities, we all have children, so we can't have everybody favorite, but we love Bridgeport, and we love how you connect with the city and with the presenters. And if you want to know what 1,261 cities looks like, that's what it looks like. It's a lot of cities. And we're amazed that we're all connected. And even during the pandemic, when in April last year we had no events, suddenly we pivoted and we went online, and we're still running events like your fantastic event today. So why has PechaKucha become so positive and important and people love it? Well, we think it's to do with the framework, the simple framework. 20 images shown for 20 seconds each. It's fun, it's fast, and it's friendly. Everybody can understand it and everybody knows when you're going to finish. So the restriction is also important. Yeah? It's a level playing field. So, famous architects can present and students can present next to one another. They both have exactly the same number of images. It's a level playing field. It's like a Big Mac. It's the same all around the world. But one of the most important things is the fact that it's a format and a community, and that makes an amazing flywheel. So the community promotes a format, the format promotes the community, and that's the real thing, that people get together physically, and I'm so glad you're together physically tonight, and hybrid. The other amazing thing is it's about real stories. Anybody can get to the stage. Just like the construction worker in Tokyo, here Nina gave this a very impassioned presentation about a story that she would not normally be able to share with the world, but here she can share the world. So we're very much about bottom up. Anybody can present. And it's about communities, I say, in Bridgeport. Thank you so much for embracing PechaKucha. Your 11 events that you've had so far are really amazing. Your posters are amazing. And the fact that you record all your presentations and follow the projector rules on the side. You've had nearly 100 presenters on stage. What an incredible archive for a city. As we go forward, we hope this builds into a bigger and larger, as I should say, presentation set. But what a great archive for the city going forward. And we hope that this runs for many years and we get many more amazing presentations. PechaKucha has been really privileged to work with some of the most important organizations around the world, and I just want to touch on some of those. During the pandemic, the Frank Lloyd Wright Home and Studio and Conservancy couldn't get people to come to their sites, so we organized a series of online events for them called Wright Sites, and you can check that out on our website. And we've had curators from Falling Water and from the Guggenheim Museum. We've also connected with the World Press Photo. This is the photo each year, which is like the most important. They have a competition, and we've had 2 major events with them. And here is an amazing photo of a horse which goes around the wards in a cancer hospital. And what we're really proud and excited about is coming up on the 1st of November, we're going to COP26 in Glasgow, which is a world climate conference. And we'll be getting in touch with you because we're wanting kids to show in 20 slides, 20 seconds, how we should tell the leaders of the world to get on with it and to get on with climate change and get it sorted out. And of course, remember, you're always in great company. This week, we have 12 events around the world, which is really amazing, from Slovakia to Australia to Tasmania to Switzerland and to Bridgeport. That's really, really important that we connect everybody together. And we want to say a big thank you to you again for joining our International PechaKucha Day. And we'd love you to save the date for next year, for 2022, where we'll be having PechaKucha Night. I think it's going to spread from the 19th to the 20th. We have that time zone issue, but we'd love you to join us and love you to be a big part of that. So thank you again, Bridgeport, for being such fantastic PechaKucha Night supporters. Yay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. All right, Bill, let's get it going. Hi, guys, I'm John, as you know. Since January of last year, I have taken and edited an image daily. I share them online on Instagram using a hashtag, the documented heart 365. And the first slide and my last slide show my Instagram name, if that becomes of interest. But long before 2020, I loved taking pictures. As a kid, I had a point and shoot camera. I've got tons of old folders of mail-away to develop pictures, army men conquering a stick fort or family vacation, you name it. lost the picture. Well, as we're searching for it, that slide you saw before was one of my sons.
Let's go back.
And I love taking pictures of my kids. I love being a dad. So back in December of 2019, my friend Kristen emailed about a program that she's starting called the Documented Heart 365. Whatever. I remembered photos I had seen her share doing a 365 a while back. And so after waffling for a bit, I was ready to dive in. So I think I should actually be one slide past this now. Hey, dive in. At the beginning, there were things I knew were coming. I was turning 40 that year, an election was coming, I was starting a new job on January 1st at Beardsley Zoo. But who knew that less than 3 months into that new job, I would be juggling watching my 2 young sons 5 days a week and trying to get my work done. All because of the global pandemic. So for background, this is my wife Kim playing Yoda in the scene you can see up here, along with 2 of our boys. And since I started this project, we've actually added a 3rd son to the mix. He's a foster baby, so we will not actually see our 3rd in any of these pictures. Thank you. This process, this daily picture habit has become a time to reflect, as I certainly was when I turned 40 and shared this self-portrait. There also are themes that have emerged. Freezing time is impossible unless you're in sci-fi, but photography kind of works like amber. It freezes an instant. It kind of preserves a feeling for what's been going on. And I had taken a lot of photos before and shared them. I always like to take pictures of the sky. But during this project, water became a big theme, whether it was in the pool, like in the last slide, or the lake in our neighborhood. Our family resets ourselves and we spend quality family time, friend time, splashing, swimming, exploring. While the people and places and things of our lives can feel transitory and easy to change, some instants freeze and stick with us. So as our sons continue to transform and grow quickly, I'm really grateful to be creating a document that will place the sequence of time in some order. I've also been changing how I look at myself and my family and this project. It's become valuable to imagine being able to flip back to the laughter of a friendship with a friend who may have moved away already, or what we did that time that the power went out, the first weeks after our foster baby arrived in our house. I think I missed a couple slides. Yeah, okay. So that previous one I took on a February night when I was giving the baby a bottle in the middle of the night. And I saw the lights from across the street glistening on the window. And with this guy, what I was thinking about was the fact that I write grants. So I think a lot about putting ideas into writing, transforming or transferring a complicated idea into something that people can understand. And this project, this daily picture project, feels like building a library for our family, where we can go back and look at kind of what made sense. Here's our friendship with a friend who moved. So I think about goals as a dad, and one of the things that I really hope for our boys is that we can raise them in a way that they can continue to be awestruck by the world. When they look at the world around them now at their age, wonder seems so close at hand. And when I look at these pictures, I often find the ones I like most, like this one, show them expressing that. And I feel like if Kim and I are doing our jobs well, then we just need to open ourselves to that wonder that they share with us. And even though there are things we may know about what's coming, or things like a pandemic or anarchy in our nation's capital that nobody saw coming, we have to kind of keep moving along our way. So we find ourselves suspended in midair, often controlled by forces that are beyond our understanding or our view. But it helps to be able to remember that each day we're building a life. We're making decisions and unmaking them. And while we travel, the tools at our disposal, words, music, photography, conversation, a hug, they help us. And it also helps to remember that we're putting this all together as we go. So I know that what carries me every day is hope, good company, faith, and during this project, it's been searching for some little piece to snap and pause with, to reflect on and share. And today is the 607th day that I have taken a photo and shared the image. And it's really given me a new perspective. So I hope maybe some piece of this has given you a bit of a new perspective. And that number seems crazy, 607. But I wish you all many great adventures ahead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Blumfield and I'm here from Los Angeles. All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
After years of living in New York City and preparing for an acting, writing, and singing career, I was 27 years old and all of my dreams were coming true. I was the star of a reality television show. I was famous. My life was being filmed and broadcast live 24 hours a day. The executive producers were Madonna and Oprah. I was dedicated to delivering compelling television. I danced and sang outside laundromats. I preached on street corners about defeating the evil political agendas. And I remember lying down in the middle of heavily trafficked intersections, cut, cue the extras. I can't take it anymore. My mood had plummeted into a serious depression. I lost my job, ran out of money, and was evicted from my apartment. See, I wasn't on a show. I was actually in the middle of a bipolar manic episode. The show was a figment of my psychosis. I lost my job and was evicted from my apartment. I wasn't quite in reality. I was pushing a shopping cart all through the city filled with trash that I had collected. But with this trash, I was going to build a huge art installation called Hoot Hoot Don't Pollute. A friend offered to let me stay with her, but soon after my arrival, she found me crying that I wanted to die. I had swallowed a fistful of tranquilizers with wine. She rushed me to the hospital where I was committed to the psych ward, where I thought to myself, wow, this must be really good for ratings. A social worker found me long-term housing at a recovery home funded by the state for homeless with mental illness. The recovery home was called the Harbor, a metaphor, I suppose, for the raging rainstorm that was my madness, in which I was dangerously dancing. Some months later, my birthday arrived, and I could not have been more depressed. It was my night to cook. Harriet, my favorite caretaker, announced it was shopping time. We all piled into the van. I shrunk low in my seat, knowing passerbys would see us a bunch of wackos. I wasn't one of those people. At the market, I grabbed the easiest thing I could think of, hot dogs and beans. Harriet kindly encouraged me to try again, reminding me, after all, it was my birthday, I should make something special. Thinking of my bohemian life and friends back at home, feeling nostalgic, I filled my cart. At the harbor, I flipped on the oldies radio station and danced about while I chopped and diced furiously. The garlic sizzled, the sauce thickened, and I got lost in the activity of cooking. The dish was called Penny of the House. I had learned to make it when I was a waitress. I put the food out on the table, but without the activity of cooking to keep my mind occupied. I looked around at these practical strangers and I longed for my old life and my friends who were having career success, falling in love, having babies, while I was here feeling utterly alone and distant, and mental illness felt like a death sentence. Then I heard someone clear their throat. I looked up and I saw it was Gary. He was chronically homeless and diagnosed with a form of schizophrenia. He announced, "Erica, this is like a 5-star hotel meal. Thank you." Gary's reaction was an awakening. It made me feel worthwhile again. I had been so focused on what I had lost. I was blind to what I had found, a new community and a second chance. After that, Gary and I hung out a lot. He would play Metallica's Master of Puppets on the harmonica, and I would try to sing along. I spent a year at the harbor, and I was able to better accept my diagnosis and better manage it. It wasn't a straight line. The harbor was the foundation. There were times when I wanted to quit, insistent that I was cured. I packed my bags and was out the door, but the director of the program stopped me. She said, "I'm not going to let you slip through the cracks." It's been 17 years since I left the harbor. I took the sense of purpose the experience gave me, and I slowly rebuilt my life. I became an educator, teaching reading and writing to elementary school age children, and teaching has been a lifeline for me. When students pass me in the halls and they call out, "Hi, Miss Erica, hi, Miss Erica," like I'm some kind of star, and they bound into my classroom so eager to learn. I'm not the type of star I imagined I'd be all those years ago, but it's taken another form, one for which I am truly grateful, that I have the privilege to instill in them that they are worthwhile and be there to encourage them as they discover and develop their purpose. When I worry that I'll have another breakdown, and about what will happen, I remember Gary, I remember the harbor, and how that experience absolutely instilled an optimism within me. It inspired a rebellion against darkness, and it continued to give me the strength to navigate through and in and out of the challenges of my bipolar illness. No matter what comes my way, I will always have this purpose and a sense of feeling worthwhile.
Thank you so much for tonight, being a part of this wonderful cast, and let's have some fun. My journey begins long before my actual birth. Blessed to come from a family rich in culture, entrepreneurship, and community involvement, I was exposed to life's most precious moments at an early age, still not knowing that I must create my own path and help those around me to rise. Through the desire to be the fifth Ninja Turtle and my mother's tireless efforts, she was able to locate a karate school that would allow me to enroll at the age of 2 years and 9 months old. We did not know at the time, but this journey would instill a set of skills in me to help me through my higher education and to pursue my dreams to better our community. My dream was to share my passion with all those around me, to help to inspire them to persevere and become 1% better each day. I knew that I would start with my younger brother, Angel. He was my first student. I had a blessing to share this passion with him and help guide his journey not only as a martial artist, but as a teacher and a Latino leader within our community and classrooms. Upon graduating with my master's from Quinnipiac University, I was having trouble jumpstarting my career. At this moment, I took the risk to open up Stratford Shotokan Karate School with the support of my family. While I knew I still needed to start an actual career, I saw a void in our community and wanted to share my passion with that youth to overcome adversities. Shortly after opening the dojo, I was invited to try out for the United States martial arts team. This was a dream come true and a blessing to represent our community in international competition. I was successful in securing my spot on the roster and began my training camp. Upon returning from tryouts, I was offered a position with Southwest Community Health Center as their outreach coordinator. Shortly, it said, you said to follow your heart and you can never go wrong. I married my college sweetheart and the dojo continued to grow. We found a larger space to support community programming, and my role with Southwest, I was able to have career and purpose intersect and raise awareness throughout our community as I trained for competition in South Africa. This is a picture from my time in South Africa. I chose this photo because it captured a moment of pure happiness and an intersection of my life. I was able to share my musical talents and allow my soul to speak through rhythm. Little did I know how important this would be. My spirit was unsettled, and I didn't realize the pivotal shift that was taking place. Upon my return, I came home to a broken home and an empty relationship. My world was turned upside down through divorce, and I couldn't make sense of this moment. While loss and heartache are never easy, it always offers opportunities for growth. I couldn't ignore the voice of my abuelo before he passed away. Ponga su mente derecha y sigue derecho. While it would have been easy to solve during this moment, I was able to escape into my music and training. Seeing the joy that music brought others, I focused on using my craft to tell them a story. We never know what someone is going through, but if we can bring them a moment of joy, that is our true purpose. While diving deeper into my art and teaching my students at the dojo, I leveraged the opportunity it offered me to help make them a better life. Through transparency with myself, I was able to teach them from my shortcomings. This allowed me to refocus and polish my character, understanding the man that God envisioned and the purpose that I was to hold on this earth. While out for a day of culture on the Bridgeport Art Trail, I came across a painting that was all too familiar. I was told that I knew the artist on a personal level from years past and that I should reach out to her. Not sure if I had the correct number, I sent a text message, which led to a conversation, which led to a date, and then this doodle was from that first date. As the days passed, we became closer. Through common interest in health, salsa, and endless nights of conversation of our own individual experiences and traumas, we bonded in a way that I had never experienced. I found that while I was focused on helping others to be better, I was neglecting my own needs. I learned to peel back the layers of life and rediscover my why. With a new focus, I was preparing for my next World Games in London, England. My preparation was different this time. I was supported by a partner who helped me to find my best self and become emotionally vulnerable through my training. Our training is often viewed as a reflection of life. Thus, the adversities that we face will be overcome through love and pureness of heart. The pandemic. We all experienced it to a different degree. While working at Southwest, our team made a complete pivot to serve our community through testing, education, and vaccinations. I was honored to be a member of the leadership team that stood strong for our community, the community that I love so dearly, and the families that make our city so special. You will never know where you're going until you understand where you came from. While Southwest was offering barrier-free access to healthcare, our community was reluctant to take advantage. Why? Because of the history that has plagued our Black and Brown communities. It was time to shed light to the past, embrace the uncomfortable conversations today so that we can make for a better tomorrow for our children. Bomba, the music of our ancestors, the music of resistance. Speaking through your drum was one of the most purest forms of communication. While our society was in an uprising, the rhythm of bomba gave life to the words being spoken in our communities. The dancers brought the story to life while inspiring our next group of advocates to stand proud and let their voices be heard through all the land. While it continued to take turns, the path never seemed more clear. The late nights and intersections, layers peeled back, were accumulating to this moment. I think that this slide is a little bit early, but it's out of order, but I'm gonna talk to it anyways. This is Samuel Diaz IV. They say that when you teach your son, you teach your son's son. This can never hold so true. The honor to have a name carry on for a fourth generation, and I thank my father and grandfather for the lessons learned, and now that I can pass these on to my son. This is a picture from our maternity shoot. She's here with us today. Honored by the Puerto Rican Parade of Fairfield County, this day was special because I feel that it paid tribute to our past generations and the foundations that built our city. On July 10th, it might have been Samuel Diaz III Day for the city of Bridgeport, but for me it was much larger. It was my personal honoring to my family and a thank you to my grandparents and my parents. Allow your light to shine bright and embrace the struggles as it's part of your journey towards happiness. Our interpretation of life is deeply rooted in our own experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. Refuse the limitations that society places on yourself and these communities. If you follow your dreams with pureness of heart and lead with love, your legacy will live on for generations to come.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mio from Los Angeles. Okay, let's go. Have you had roommates you didn't like? One who eats your food and invites a bunch of friends over without your permission. They stay up all hours and gallivant all over the house. However you try to get rid of them, nothing works. And it always starts off harmless enough, one or two. And then come the friends. I mean friends. I don't invite them to my house. I don't open my door for them. Just because they became superheroes, they don't get red carpet at my house. They randomly show up in the kitchen, living room, or bathroom for no apparent reason. If I see a single ant, moments later, his brothers, sisters, cousins are forming a conga line. Sometimes they are just hanging out in the bathroom or the living room, just for fun, and they pay no rent in Los Angeles. I had thought of them as rude deadbeats until they invaded my bedroom. Ladies and gentlemen, my bedroom is holy. In my bedroom, my sanctuary, there is no food, no drink, and certainly no ants. In my little world, this was an act of war. They've been promoted to Code Red, my mortal enemies. Challenge me to a fight? I will make them regret it forever. Well, forever for an ant is only about 90 days. Today, I will tell you about my battle. It comes in 3 stages: analysis, plan, and execution. Analysis. I studied their behavioral patterns before I made my move. This is what I found. They have a super sense of smell. They use antenna to communicate with each other. They are good storytellers. Each ant belongs to a different storytelling group. They tell stories about food and where they came from. They provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which ants are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills. What a great concept! I wish I could find a group like that for myself. Okay, my analysis is done. What's next? Making a plan. My plan is simple. Kill them all. Finally, the execution phase. First, I tried several bait traps. I put the bait in their path, but none of them went inside. It was just an obstacle for them to crawl over. Actually, they looked like they were having fun. It was just an exercise boot camp for them. This is becoming Mission Impossible and Nation. My next attempt was a white powder called boric acid. The powder was supposed to cling to their body, suck moisture from them, and lead to death. Oh, it sounds so sexy, doesn't it? I watched them for a while. They were having a blast with the white powder, but nobody was suffering. What's going on? In fact, they were on vacation, like playing in the snow. Houston, we've got a problem. Then my friend recommended a bait called Terro, Terro. It's a sweet liquid poison that ants just love. The user reviews sounded promising. Only the problem I had was their path. I didn't like it. I didn't want them to be playing behind my back, but rather under my direct supervision. So I put the bait where I wanted them to be and picked some little guys up and dropped them one by one next to the liquid. They seemed to be happy with it, but there was a problem. They didn't tell anybody else. Did I pick the wrong ones? Maybe good eaters, but no friends? Aren't they all supposed to be good communicators? I don't have time for them to become good storytellers. So I put the bait where they were. Good morning, friends. Room service. A few hours later, there were hundreds, thousands of ants swarming over the liquid. They were dancing, doing carol shots. The crazy party seemed to be endless. But after a few days, their numbers reduced. About a week later, there were none. The war was over. Victory is mine. Life is good. I don't see any ants anywhere anymore. Then a few months later, I see some ants under the sink. What are they doing there? Okay, let's use the Terro again. I opened the kitchen cabinet and reached for it under the sink. My hand is covered with ants. They are there for the can of bait. With that, that's a prolong of Ant Terminator Part 2. They won't be back. Thank you.
Dr. Blaine Bridgeport. Now Elaine Shapiro. Okay, go ahead. I grew up in Orion Township, Michigan, and we're living as a vacation, as you can see. It's considered a suburb of North Detroit, which is basically anything north of Detroit and considered safe. I grew up in Lake Orion, Michigan, and yes, we called it Orion, despite the fact I grew up on Saturn Drive, close to Walmsley Circle and Armstrong Drive. What can I say? It's the Midwest. We also call soda up top. My neighborhood was called Keatington, and it was on the proverbial right side of the tracks. I grew up in an upper middle class family. I grew up in a ski boat lake. We had a ski boat, jet skis, all kinds of big birthday parties there. My crowning glory was my sweet 16th birthday party on my dad's yacht on Lake Huron. And despite having a somewhat unconventional, for my neighborhood, working mother and divorced family, I lived what people would call a charmed life. We had the biggest house on the lake at the time. I had the most toys for my friends to play with, paddle boats, jet skis, ski boats, that kind of thing. I had lessons, all the lessons, etiquette, horse shows, ballet, singing, voice, you name it. That's like a little pony. And I was on the volleyball team. I was an honor roll student. I was in honors choir. I was going to spring formals with my friends, just living my best life. I was first chair sax in all 3 bands I was in. I sang in all the choirs. I choreographed for drama club and the plays. I performed in all of them. But what they didn't know was my junior year, my stepfather had left my mother, and she was struggling hard to raise 2 young boys and a teenager. I was starting to gain weight for some unknown reason, and that I was struggling hard for my feelings for girls. And there was no one to tell about my feelings for girls, except for maybe my art school friends who had also thought about that, but only in theory. We only talked about it in theory, because in the Midwest in the late 80s, early 90s, the worst thing in my world you could be was gay or fat. Anything but gay or fat. So I stuffed those pesky little girl feelings till college. And in college, oddly enough, I became an advocate for gay rights only because there was a policy against homophobia in the classroom. And I had a passion for activism in college. I spoke up for people's rights, but not because of my own sexuality, just because I wanted to speak up for people. Also in college, I went into photography and ended up with a scholarship to art school for photography. And I struggled throughout those years to understand who I was. Was I gay? Was I bisexual? Was I punk rock? Was I angry at God? What was going on? I was struggling for answers. I didn't know who I was. At the time, my mom told me I was gay because I was fat. As if fat was a reason to be gay, because you couldn't find a guy and maybe girls were less picky. I mean, have you met a girl that was less picky? I blew my mom's fat theory when I lost weight and continued to date women for the next 15 plus years. So when I started going to medical school, I went back even further into the proverbial closet. It was like if you knew me and I was dating someone, then you knew, but if you didn't know me, you just didn't know. I was not out on Facebook. I didn't align myself with any political gay causes, nothing to identify me as gay. I thought if you were perceptive and you took a deep dive into my photos, you could probably tell, but if you weren't looking, you just didn't see it. And by this time, we're about 15 to 20 years into me being bi or gay or whatever I was. And I had been in several juried art shows, each time declining all interviews, only showing under my first and middle name, and just hiding in plain sight, basically, thinking that my patients wouldn't want to know. And politically, there couldn't have been a better time to be out, basically. New York had legalized 31 genders to identify with, so I could be a gender-gifted femme, or a gender bender, or a gender blender if I was feeling sassy. Ellen was out and proud, and people liked her even better than when she was a comedian, and they had legalized marriage equality. But I struggled with my own internal homophobia. I mean, out, gay, and sometimes fat gay role model and a doctor. Like, what would my patients think? What would my mother think? I already struggled with her. I had body positive bathing suit pictures, and my mother was British. Okay, and I already knew way too much skin for her. My grandmothers were rolling in their graves. I knew it. I didn't know if I could just be out and proud. And then magically, this girl I had a crush on 10 years ago shows up in Connecticut. And we start dating, and I tell my mother, and she says, "Well, you're not a lesbian." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "No, you're doing it for attention, or if you have a heavy abandonment complex or something." And I'm like, "Me hiding in plain sight? I don't think so." And so 2020 comes with my engagement to Kim Jagger, and she's a Mormon, and I'm thinking her family is not even going to accept this at all. And I know now I have to face my demons. And with my most controversial piece of art I've ever put in a show, my longtime friend and art curator, Suzanne, asked, "Can we please interview you for this piece?" And my insides are clenched in fear, and I'm like, yes, who's gonna see this? Is my mother gonna see it? Are my patients gonna see it? What's gonna happen? I don't even know. And on July 24th, 2021, I went back to that idyllic hometown that I had run from in the 1990s. And my own mother, who had told me I was straight just a year and a half before, married Kim and I on that same dock, on that same lake, in that same hometown, with the same friends in attendance. And Kim's entire Mormon family, the kilts of my family's Anderson clan, and me having spoke up for everyone else's rights, came out loud and proud at 50 years old, publicly to my 1,500 Facebook and Instagram friends in my hometown, and now to you. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ricky Mestry, but on the night of Tuesday, September 12, 2017, my name was Ekaterina Vinokurova. If that sounds like a Russian name, it's because it is. So, let me tell you my story. To start off, let me first say that I, along with millions of other people, identify as a super fan of the award-winning and commercially successful entertainer, Ricky Martin. Over the years, I have become friends with many of his fans from all over, both in person and online. I should also mention that I am a very talented artist, and my cartoon tribute pieces I've drawn over the years have caught the attention of many of these fans, as well as Ricky Martin himself. One fan in particular was the president of the Ricky Martin fan club in Russia. Her name was Kati. Kati reached out to me one night on Instagram with a problem. She had a ticket to see Ricky Martin's All-In Vegas residency show, as well as a meet and greet ticket to get photographed with him before the show. But she couldn't go. So she asked me if I would go in her place and offered me her ticket at a reduced price. I wanted to say yes right away, but I needed to see if there was something I could actually do. I had to see if I could get the time off of work and figure out how I would get there and where I would stay. Luckily, my best friend Raquel had become a flight attendant earlier that year and arranged to take care of the flight and planned to meet me there from Florida, where he was living. After I agreed to buy her tickets, she connected me with her friend Val, who used his Ticketmaster account to get the tickets. She was not able to purchase an American show ticket from Russia, but her friend Val was able to do so from Canada. With her approval, he proceeded to call Ticketmaster and arrange the name change. Val called Ticketmaster and explained what we wanted to do. Changing the name for the ticket to see the show was a simple process. Changing the name on the meet and greet proved to be slightly more complicated. To do that, I would need to arrive in Vegas 3 days before the show and do it at the box office. This was all happening in the month of June for September's show. So if that's how we needed to do it, we had no choice but to wait till then and meanwhile proceed with hotel arrangements. My friend Gabby had just been to Vegas to buy some bedazzled boots and recommended staying at the Hooters Hotel. The days drew nearer to the time I was scheduled to leave, but Hurricane Maria was set to hit Puerto Rico on the day I was planning on being something special in the air. With the potential of affecting other flights, Miguel changed my flight from Saturday to Friday and decided to stay home with his husband in Florida as Maria was going to hit them after Puerto Rico. I arrived Friday night, settled in. Saturday morning, when the box office opened, I was there 3 days before Tuesday's show to arrange the name swap for the meet and greet tickets. The girl behind the counter was clueless with what to do, so she called for her manager, Brittany, to handle my situation. Brittany didn't know what to do either, so she took my phone number and email, and she said she would look into it and get back to me later. I let Val know what was going on so that he can tell Kathy and keep her in the loop. Hours would go by and I would try to enjoy Vegas while I was clutching onto my phone awaiting a call. Knowing I was in Vegas, Val casually mentioned about the money to send him to in turn send to Katsi. But I had to tell him I couldn't send him any money till I knew I was going to actually take that photo with Ricky Martin. And fortunately, he understood. So we continued to wait. I finally get the call from Ricky. She tells me about some fine print that indicates that the tickets are non-transferable, so we can't do it. I try to get her to find some way to get this ticket to me as I came all the way from Connecticut to do this. She agrees to see if there is something else she can do. All day Sunday, I wait with no word from Ricky, so I leave her a message. Monday, she calls me and says she has figured out how we can get the ticket in my name. She said Katsi would have to come down to the box office with her ID and tell them to put my name on the ticket instead of hers. I was floored. I tell them if Katsi was able to come down to the box office in Vegas, she would just go to the show herself. So now they have to look into the situation again. I let Val know what is happening and he gets Katsi to send him a picture of her passport that he sends to me to be proof that she is in fact trying to do this. Now it's Tuesday, the day of the show. What a gamble it was to come down to Vegas without any certainty of the meet and greet even happening. I made one final attempt to figure this out at the box office. They finally come up with a solution. Since there was no way to change the name on it, they told me when I get in line for the meet and greet with my ID, let them know that there is going to be under Ekaterina Ryukanova instead. Nobody was going to be able to say that the way I could. So there were two lines, and the girl who was there realized that I was there for Ekaterina Ryukanova, was so excited that she won a poker game in Vegas. See how excited she was? And as you can see, I got my picture with Ricky Martin, and he was thrilled with the gift I presented to him, which was an illustrated book of his Vegas residency, based on pictures and videos I had seen online prior to going. It also featured members of his band, as well as his backup dancers. What I may have forgotten to mention was that this was actually the fifth time I got to be next to him and gift him with a unique piece of artwork I created specifically for him based on what was going on in his career at the time. He was so kind and gracious and remembered me and my art, which always felt larger than life to me. This story actually has more details to it, but this experience has taught me how to get to the main points of it. My friends who know me very well will actually be very proud of me for telling this story so quickly, as they have had to endure the full 2-hour-long version of it. So, thank you.
Sure, even the 2-hour-long version of it, live right by, you know. And that is our first stop, which is flown right by. I wanted to say a great big thank you to John, Erica, Sam, Leo, Delane, and Ricky for those wonderful stories. Please take a few, 10 minutes rather, to chat, get to know each other. Shepherd Town is sold out, so if you're still hungry, there are some delightful places around the downtown you can eat, maybe not 10 minutes, but later. And we'll be back here with our second half, our 7 presenters, 7 stories coming up in just a few minutes. Enjoy.
Devastating Tokyo in February 2003. As an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration, featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds. Moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more than from gatherings. Vulnerable for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult. Presenting something that you like. Ideas but talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is Livestream Night in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for the song that talking this says Pechakucha. Thank you Artie Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always song in a place, eating and drinking space. Bars to gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are big pals, we are big pals. All over the world, a real network. We are big pals, we are big pals. With wonderful stories at the big nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
Pechakucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
Devised in Tokyo in February 2003 as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. The nights are informal and fun gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult. Presenting something that you like, ideas, what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world, together let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is Livestream Night in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for the song that talking this says Pechakucha. Thank you Artie Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always song in a place, eating and drinking space. Bars to gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are big pals, we are big pals. All over the world, a real network. We are big pals, we are big pals. With wonderful stories at the big nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
Pechakucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
Devised in Tokyo in February 2003 as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more and for gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult, presenting something that you like. Ideas what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is Laklaket Night in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeia Japanese phrase for the sound of talking, this is Pechakucha. Thank you, Dytham, for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha-cha-cha. Always swung in a place, eating and drinking space. Bar, resto, gallery, home beach or swimming pool. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are Pechakuchas, we are Pechakuchas. All over the world, a real network. We are Pechakuchas, we are Pechakuchas. With wonderful stories at the Pecha Nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
Pechakucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
Devised in Tokyo in February 2003 as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more and for gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult, presenting something that you like. Ideas what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha,
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is Laklaket's night in Turkish.
Japanese phrase for son talking this is Pechakucha. Thank you Astrid Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always song in a place, eating and drinking space. Bars to gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh 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 eh.
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are big pals, we are big pals. All over the world, a real network. We are big pals, we are big pals. With wonderful stories at the big nights.
Welcome back, everyone. We're ready for part 2. We have another 7 great PechaKucha stories to be heard. Our first presenter for the second half is Cynthia Rojas. Take it away, Cynthia.
Hello, Cynthia.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Rojas and I'm from East Haven, Connecticut. And I am ready, Bill. It is 10:30 p.m. on September 21st, 2017, and the phone rings. It is my sister Betsy, and I realize this is not good because her timing never is. Like when she was born, it wasn't the right time for me. See, before she came, I was the only girl, and now she was also the youngest. I think I hear what she's telling me, but all I managed to say is, I'll call you right back. When I hang up, I realize that she just told me our grandparents have gone missing in the midst of Hurricane Maria. Hurricane Maria is the greatest hurricane to hit Puerto Rico in almost 100 years. Only 7% of the island has any power, and we don't know if our grandparents made it or if they're alive. My grandpa is a pain and he is stubborn, which is why they didn't evacuate before the hurricane came. Even though he's wheelchair bound and he would probably need medical help, he wanted to stay in his home. But my grandma, wow, she is the love of my life. My earliest memory in life is spending weekends with her, and I was just 3 and 4 years old. No one till this day has ever loved me the way my grandmother loves me. For the next, my grandmother leaves to Puerto Rico weeks after Betsy is born, but she tells me that I am perfect just the way I am. Everyone should have someone who thinks they are perfect. And for the next 13 days, Betsy and I call anybody and everybody. If there's even an inkling of hope that you somehow can get us to our grandparents, we called you. Betsy called you. I called you. We called politicians. We called the Coast Guard. We stayed in front of the phone, listening to WhatsApp because people were calling the names of survivors. And we never heard our grandparents' name. We had no idea where they were. Then there's a breakthrough. Betsy gets connected to a kid who we knew back in the day, Dennis. I was like, Dennis, the kid who hung out with Arlene, he remembers you? She's like, yeah, he does now. Well, Dennis is all grown up and he works for the FAA. Dennis is now an air traffic controller, and saving our grandparents became Dennis's personal mission, a glimmer of hope. And yet, while our leader was throwing paper towels to survivors who were grieving, Betsy, Dennis, and I were left to figure this out on our own. I realized that we had become those individuals that we see on the news who are desperately looking for their families after a natural disaster. Well, now it's October 5th, and we're still waiting. But there's a breakthrough. Betsy calls me, something I've gotten very used to now. Who? Sully? The pilot? She's like, yeah, do you know him? Dennis says he's famous. Betsy, Sully landed an airplane on the Hudson River. He had no casualty. He saved the lives of 155 people. There was a movie, Tom Hanks played him. Where do you live, Betsy? Well, I've never heard of him, but Dennis says he's gonna go look for our grandparents. Really? But there are millions of people on the island. Why? Because he wanted to help. And so for the next 5 days, it gets really exciting. Sully is going back and forth, text messaging all kinds of people with big titles and big names. And he has to make sure there's an airport next to my grandparents' home. And he's gonna need to refuel. So there are also concerns about that. And he needs to make sure that the runway doesn't have too much debris and there are backlogs and all this stuff. And what would have been the greatest humanitarian effort ever lands nowhere. Sully couldn't make it happen. It was too complicated and too risky. Betsy and I were back to square one, where we started. 21 days later, she is at the airport, recounting the last 3 weeks. We know a lot of people thought that we were crazy, hoping on a dream, but Betsy never gave up. And then she sees him, Grandpa, in a wheelchair, being pushed by the attendant in the airport, and Grandma's right next to him, holding the one suitcase that they got out with. There is no big fanfare, no major humanitarian effort worthy of a book or a movie. There's no Pilot Sully. There is no Tom Hanks. It is just Betsy hugging the two people she never gave up on. That glimmer of hope is what kept her breathing and is what kept our grandparents as well breathing. They knew we would get them. My baby sister, the one who I didn't want to come into our family, ends up decades later being the one person to save our grandparents. My grandmother always said that I was perfect. She is wrong. It is Betsy who is perfect. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Scott, and this is the power of potential. We all start our lives as a soul cell, and it's connected to our mom, and then it's connected to our lives, and it's really an exciting time. It's a sense of nourishment. And I always have loved the notion of telling stories. That's the embodiment of who I am after 40 years, 50 years, now I'm 58. And it's just wonderful to look at stories and see where we're coming from, and to have that hope within our lives. And I'm at the heart of the city, in downtown Bridgeport, sharing my life with some friends from church, and I always love to just show on the 4th of July with this theme of fireworks that we're never far away from where we need to be. This is my third Pechakucha, and it's a wonderful experience. Here I am at the computer. It's a place where I get to develop stories. I connect to the World Wide Web, just as I was connected to Mom, I'm connected to the world. And with my iPhone, it provides me with this sense of being a lifesaver when we are struggling in our lives with the pandemic. A long time I resisted the computer, I resisted the iPhone. It's a lot of fun. It's a sense of comfort. It's also a sense of joy when you can connect with FaceTime, or when the computer doesn't work, it's there. And Maine is a place I love. Maine is a place where, when I was a kid, I was able to go out on a boat. And I got a little too close to the boats in the harbor, Cozy Harbor. And what happened was my oar snapped. And here I had to go around in circles. And that was very frustrating. You have these big boats. They look great. They're all shiny. But then when you're stuck with an oar, you go around in circles. A lot of us at this past year went around in these circles, but it teaches us some lessons. Never to give up, keep going forward, inch at a time. And here I have this gull saying, Scott, I saw you a few hours out the harbor. I think you should tell some of your friends. And I've been doing this with that gull advice. I've been telling my friends a long time of how do you cope and how do you get through life. And I do that through Toastmasters, and I do it in a variety of ways. And this is a scene, I love the tides of Maine, and obviously the tides did. I did have to leave Maine. My mom headed west. It was bittersweet time, but then I have all those memories I write about. And from there, we're on the westward expansion, where my mom's out west with my brother, and also I am also taking the courage to connect with the arts and with my faith, and as I did with nature. And it's always important when you do that is that you have bridges along the way, and that these bridges help us to form those connections, whether it's the city or whether it's in the town, or even here with all kinds of adventures that we all have. I didn't know ants had that kind of life, but then here I am, dancing with the group. That's thanks to Marianne Smith, my first acrylic painting. A little scared to put some color on there. I improved over time, but I said, let's have a dance. And then I was able to air it at City Lights, and that was fun. Just seeing the patterns. I love patterns. I love dance. When I was in the 8th grade, I danced with several ladies from a few different schools. It was fun, twirling, and just having a great time, not worrying about things. And patterns are just one of the things I love. Seeing the brightness, the colors, and also another illustration of my painting is just moving around that paint. It's dancing that paintbrush. It's having that joy and not worrying about, okay, it's not perfect, but it's beautiful. And I have the original, a lot of my people call me the original. My church, I love the painting of the seasons, and especially with winter and bleakness, but also the beauty against the windows of our church. And it just shows that you can look out and see different perspectives of the world. And then you have the season of fall, and that fall season is just a beautiful reflection of what happens outside of that season. You can look back at the crops and your productivity, and it just gives me great joy when I look at those memories and those aspects of Jesus is bigger than life. He is against that element of faith, that mystery of life. And it's just wonderful when you're in that community and you can look up and you can see, and obviously representing his creation of the cosmos. And then I love at the Wisdom House, our writers group got together, and we share different stories and reflections of who we are. And you get to see just the patterns and the changes that happen as a result. And it's very rich color, nice serene place. And then you have out of that, just as I was in my mom's womb, you have the pressures of life, whether it's being teased or bullied or dealing with this pandemic, not quite knowing what to do. It's just great to see that color. It creates islands. And then I invite you to come around this fire, this time that we're sharing, to see the crackling of emotions, and also that you can then embrace one another and see the beauty of that and not be afraid of whatever you're going through in life. It's that warmth. I always love sitting around the fires in Maine. Thank you.
Okay, it's great to be here in person, and I'm glad to see such a turnout on a Sunday night. So let the show begin. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of all ages. Let me put on my happy face because I really love the circus and the magic of its big tap. But back in October 2016, I would burst into tears every time the ringmaster announced the greatest show on earth. Born here in Bridgeport, I grew up in the Beardsley Park area of our charmed city. And luckily, a zookeeper neighbor actually let me hold a tiger cub. Wow. I remember how heavy it felt in my arms for being such a small, furry bundle. Oh yes, beautiful Bridgeport by the sea, also known as Barnum country. Thank God for his insight, donation of oceanfront land in order to create a public space, Seaside Park. A bronze statue of Barnum is erected to stand in the cloud. Beloved Bridgeport was home sweet home for P.T. Barnum, who established a circus, a winter quarters along the railway and its harbor. Imagine the smell of sawdust, hay, and dung permeating the air, while onlookers of all ages would run through the city spreading the news, the circus is back in town. Imagine a herd of elephants right outside your window, and how clever was Barnum to schedule an elephant to plow only when the train passed by. The circus life provided a living and a home for many theatrical types and misfits who formed a caravan family. Phineas Taylor Barnum, such a great philanthropist. He and his circus helped put Bridgeport on the world map. And regardless of naysayers, I am proud to live in a city with such a rich circus history. We had Tom Thumb, Jumbo, and a real mummy at the Barnum Museum. The distinct calliope music began to play as the clowns jumped. Animated, lights, movement, colorful costumes, confetti captured my gaze. But when the ringmaster announced it was the greatest show on earth, I suddenly burst into uncontrollable tears. Still, I could not stop the tears. Big droplets rolled down my smiling face. I felt so overwhelmed with nostalgia and mixed emotions. This was the 145th circus extreme extravaganza. I should be happy, and I guess I was. The audience applauded. Energy of anticipation was like an electric current. A man was shot out of a cannon. Ballet dancers, acrobats, daredevils, all entertained us. But sadly, not one elephant. I had always been fascinated by tigers. Their presence and grand stature amazed me, and I noticed that each tiger looked a bit different. Never before had I seen so many big cats together, all standing upright on their hind legs upon command. The cheering crowd went wild. I burst into tears again, but this time out of sheer excitement, as a dozen magnificent beasts behaved in a synchronized performance, the response to the crack of the tamer's whip. I wiped my eyes in awe and wonder, waiting, what would be next? Since October 1897, this monument of a dark horse stands as a symbol. The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. An angel holds up an open palm to stop the man from whipping his horse. And written on it is the words justice, compassion, humanity. Justice, compassion, humanity, but for whom? The circus once provided years of happiness to millions of joyful spectators. Now it's gone forever. Only those lucky enough, like me, who remember that the circus once paraded down Main Street each year. Nevermore will the parade of exotic animals and performers grace our agenda, our arenas again. Nevermore will wayward kids romanticize about running away to become a trapeze artist in the circus someday. Lost thoughts and forgotten dreams, which belong to yesteryear. So sad. My grandchildren adore the Runaway Bunny book, which recently became an animated movie. Oh, how they clapped and squealed with delight during the high-wire circus scene. Our youth will only know a virtual circus experience, and so I cry the tears of a sad clown. To never know the elusive joy, pleasure, surprise, and wonder magically revealed under the circus big top is truly a profound loss for all of humanity. To never hear the ringmaster say, "Welcome to the greatest show on earth," is a regrettable injustice. And so I cry compassionately for all the children who will never see a live circus performance. And my grandson Leonardo watches my old circus VHS tapes. He puts on this clown nose, he hugs his bozo, and he plays with his carnival toys, pretending. No one knew that it was the last circus in Bridgeport ever. Maybe I was psychic, that's why I cried. After almost 200 years of inspiration, the greatest show on earth, Circus Extreme, took its final bow. But let's hope that Barnum's charmed city continues to produce uniquely creative people who possess amazing artistic talents. Elephants may never again walk down Main Street. However, you can see a colorful elephant mural painted on the Milton Street boathouse wall. Now, 125 years later, this statue still remains to remind us to beware of the dark side within human nature, a call for concern, which made the circus obsolete. So I cry the tears of the clown, the sad clown who wishes to turn back time, run away with the circus once again.
Namaskar, Adab, Sat Shri Akal, Namaste, hello from India. मेहंदी लगा के रखना, डोली सजा के रखना, लेने तुझे ओ गोरी आएंगे तेरे सजना. Your henna shouldn't be faded. Keep your wedding palanquin ready to take you away, oh lovely lady. Your beloved will come, be steady. But as I came of age, being steady and keeping calm was just not possible. Since growing up with a fair dose of Bollywood movies has not only made me be ready like a marriage material 24/7, but also by then has constructed an unrealistic and stereotyped presentation of an ideal woman, ideal relationship, an ideal wedding. The 20-year-old in me believed the ultimate motive of any romantic relationship was to get married, as if everything else then automatically is taken care of. I always concentrated on the adventures of when Harry met Sally and ignored the adventures thereafter. What happens when Harry finally gets Sally? This was obvious with movies concluding with a wedding car with just married signage at its back, whooshing away, which meant they lived happily ever after. Post-wedding was a very basic assumption. And life post-wedding was not as exciting a story worth telling, you see. For a girl who grew up with these inspirational examples, wedding became far more important than marriage. Some of you might be thinking, what is the difference between wedding and marriage? A wedding denotes the celebration part of the big day, such as wedding ceremony, rituals, reception, etc. Whereas marriage stands for the relationship that any couple shares. My wedding, my big, fat Indian wedding. I had it all planned out long before I met the man I would marry. Number one, a magnificent wedding venue like a Rajbari or a Zamindar Bari or a Bonedi Bari. Number two, glittering linens, sparkling backdrops, perfectly complemented with the lavish arrangement of orchids, roses. No marigolds and tuberoses, please. Number three, outdoor electric palm tree decor for the quirky vibe. The planning went on, but life is the best of planners. I got married. Not in the extremely extravagant way I had earlier imagined, but definitely in the best way a Bengali middle class family could afford to. Hence, at least $1 million was spent for that one night of ceremony, if not more. Where did I end up after the wedding ceremony? An extremely ordinary 2 BHK flat, that's rented. How did I commute every day from my home to work and back? By auto and by bus. We need to remember that I got pregnant soon after my wedding. And this daily commute back and forth in crowded public Indian vehicles was hard and hectic. Did I put an air conditioner in my bedroom during the sultry summer days? Not really. Keeping in mind the upcoming hospital costs during the delivery and the requirements of the newborn thereafter. Except for the big hole that night left in our pockets. Except for the pages of the wedding album, which my daughter may flip later. And except for the sweet and sour memories, this larger than life wedding experience existed nowhere then. As time passed, I came to realize what truly matters. It wasn't the venue or the clothes or the makeup or the theme. The only thing that seemed to matter was that two people, they stood to each other. They literally sticked. That made me look at all this through a different lens, you see. Marriage as an institution and wedding as an industry. Data. Weddings make up to 30% of India's GDP. 80% people in India will take a loan to meet the marriage cost. 30% Americans, you heard it right, not Indians, will remarry spending more money on their second wedding. I wonder, how did this idea of larger than life festivities just to celebrate the love of a couple even came to be? Sadly, weddings earlier, except for royalty, of course, back in olden days, they were done and dusted within a maximum of 1.5 days. Only the closest members of family and friends were invited. And there was not fun involved either. Bollywood blockbusters may have acted as catalysts in popularizing this flamboyant, which somehow just was not limited to those who had cash to spare. It also became a norm for those who had to pinch pennies to make sure that the grandeur was maintained. Social media, as we know, has caused a massive spike in our materialistic inclinations. In an age when privacy is a luxury, courtesy Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, not only our assets and liabilities, but also our love life is a slave to virtual reality. But this pandemic, my friends, has brought our lives back to the basics. Now we realize that celebrations can very well take place with a handpicked number of attendees. Because of the upper cap, every single person who are now at an event is somehow who is really close and who deeply matters. If we are willing to adopt this learning as our new way of living, it would save precious resources, save our planet, better the way we look at love and our relationships. This journey from outer to inner can make life itself larger than life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vicki Uditz. I'm here in Los Angeles. Let's go. So my mother grew up in this farmhouse with her mother, Ruth, my grandmother, and Ruth's sister, and Ruth's mother, a family of all women. Until I went away to college, my parents and I was an only child, we would go for Sunday dinner to this farmhouse where Ruth still lived. I had to behave myself. My grandmother didn't like children. On Sundays, Ruth would serve us mile-high salads, bananas standing on end like mountain peaks sprayed with clouds of Ready Whip topped with cherries. Also, she would serve steaks because there was a man in the house. But she didn't want to get her broiler dirty, so every Sunday she baked the steaks for 3.5 hours. The furniture in that house was upholstered in red velvet. There were clocks under glass. There were china figurines everywhere. Ruth was quite a figure. She was petite and slender. Her hair was dyed jet black. She never swore. She never touched alcohol. She was a retired high school teacher. She bought her black mink stole and her diamond rings at pawn shops. Every so often, Ruth would mention somebody named Jack. And I would always ask, who's Jack? Nobody would tell me. Oh, he's just someone. Ruth would say, you don't know him. My mother would say, Jack was a secret. So not long before I left home for college, a letter arrived in the mail at my house addressed to me from somebody named Jack. This letter described the exciting perversions to be found at higher educational institutions, fraternal orgies, illicit drugs, theater. I said to my mother, who is Jack? And she said, Jack lives in Florida with a lot of other snakes. He's my father. I decided to write back to Jack. We became pen pals. Jack sent me pictures of cemeteries and gangrenous legs. He sent me newspaper clippings about mass murderers. This was all in his line of work as an eminent pathologist. He told me he had cheated on Ruth, divorced her when my mom was 2, had barely spoken to either of them again. But he had decided to communicate with me. He told me about a big murder case he worked on. He did the autopsies for a VP at Revlon, George Beck, and his wife, who had been found dead in a private yacht. Jack determined they had been poleaxed like oxen in a slaughterhouse and then suffocated with pillows over their faces. He knew his stuff. My first year in college, Jack sent me a picture of a furry little rodent, the lemming. And he said that lemmings will gather in these big groups and jump into the ocean and swim in one direction till they all drown. He said every year, hordes of lemmings descended on Fort Lauderdale disguised as college students. Was I a lemming? I knew he was inviting me to visit him for spring break. So I put myself and 2 other female lemmings in my parents' Chevy Impala, and we drove all the way from Pennsylvania to the land of the palm tree to Florida. We pulled up in front of Jack's mansion. He came out to greet us. He was an enormous man. He was wearing scrubs and a tiny skull cap. He said, "It's hot as a nun's dream out here. Come aboard, citizens." He had designed the interior of his home to resemble a ship. In the living room, there were brass trunks and white life preservers. An elevator rose to a circular room outfitted with a ship's wheel and navigational equipment. There were windows on all sides, and beneath those windows, shelves lined with books on naval warfare. He showed my friends and me to our quarters. No, it wasn't an outhouse. We had our own bathroom that had a shower curtain with a picture of an outhouse and the caption, "Start a movement, eat a prune." I thought of Ruth's dainty bathroom, the embroidered hand towels, bars of pink came soap. There are only two priorities on any spring break. One, get a tan. My girlfriends quickly turned brown as nuts, but strange shapes appeared on my skin. I looked like a map of the world, the continents bright red, the bodies of water a pinkish gray. Jack took one look at me and said, "A textbook case of polymorphous light eruption." To stay out of the sun, I spent most of the rest of the week on the shaded deck of a tour boat called the Paddle Wheel Queen, sailing up and down the intercoastal waterway, looking at all the luxury homes, including Jack's, the biggest one, built by the man who invented the paperclip. Makes you think. The other priority is to get a date. My girlfriends and I managed to get picked up at a hot dog stand by a couple of A&P store managers from Buffalo. They took us to this lounge in a cheap motel for blue Hawaiians. We later told our girlfriends the evening had been much, much more. The final evening of our visit, Jack appeared bearing gifts. For my friends, farm animals, a flock of ceramic sheep and a family of China bunnies, symbols of nature, fertility, and sheep sex. And for me, the American Heritage Dictionary. Only the American Heritage got Jack's seal of approval because it was, as he said, the only dictionary to define chicken shit. My friends turned in and I stayed up with Jack to look at his collection of Undertaker signs. And I wondered, would he finally say something about how happy he was to meet me? I mean, my grandmother and my mom weren't his speed, but I was a kindred spirit. I was kin. He didn't disappoint me. He had something very special to say. He said, "Don't ever think of me as your grandfather. You and I are good friends. Marrying your grandmother was the biggest mistake of my life. I wish your mother had never been born." And then he handed me a brand new $100 bill. And he said, "I want you to spend this $100 recklessly, with wild abandon, with a sense of victory." When I got back to school, I wrote to Jack that I had used the money to purchase a dozen toy pigs. And I said that I had sent them anonymously to appropriate members of the student body. I hadn't. I saved the money because in the end, I was Ruth's granddaughter, not his. One day, I noticed that Jack hadn't written for a long time. And I said something to my mom and she said, "Jack is dead." I received his autobiography. It is hand-typed. It's called 2020 Hindsight. In this book, he talks about his studies at Gettysburg College, talks about practicing medicine on the European battlefield during World War II. In this book, there's no mention of Ruth or my mom or myself. It's as if we were never born. I'm still very sensitive to the sun. And whenever the continents of Asia or North America appear on my skin, I know what to call it. A polymorphous light eruption.
I just want to let everybody know, due to technical difficulties, we'll be showing Beth's story. We'll be sharing her story as a recorded version tonight. And so we'll be hearing the story why I marched in the Bridgeport PechaKucha Night. Enjoy.
Why I marched in Bridgeport's Gay Pride Parade is not a coming out story, but rather a story of becoming aware of the many genders and sexual orientations present in the rainbow of the human family. In high school, I thought gay meant happy and queer meant different, strange, flamboyant, creative. Queer is what my classmates labeled my talented male friends who were members of the school drama club. None of the boys in my high school senior class asked me to go to the prom. It was Steve, a sophomore from the drama club, who asked me. Steve picked me up in a chauffeured limousine and gave me a corsage. We had a grand old time. In college, I met Linda Smith. founder of the Women's Radio Collective. She trained me in radio and educated me about women's rights, history, and health. I learned years later that the majority of the women collective members were gay or bisexual. In 1980, after college, I moved to Bridgeport and started hosting a women's radio program. I broadcasted records of Carole King, Billie Holiday, Joni Mitchell. One day, a woman named Kathy called the station and exclaimed, "That's not women's music." Kathy explained, women's music is women musicians and singers who sing about women's issues and women's love for women on women-owned record labels. Women's music is Holly Near, Meg Christian, Sweet Honey in the Rock, Alive. Kathy invited me to a woman's night at a local feminist vegetarian bookstore and restaurant called Bloodroot. All the women sat in pairs, and Kathy introduced them as couples. I saw the light. Rather than boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, it was girlfriend and girlfriend, woman and woman. This is what gay and lesbian meant. I bought my first Holly Near and Sweet Honey in the Rock albums that night. The next year, I met a delicately featured African American named Jeff. He wore a flaming red pants and his hair's like Diana Ross. He sang like her too. When he sang on my radio show, everybody called the station asking, "Is that Diana Ross?" Jeff and I were friends and lovers. When Jeff walked across the city to come visit me, he was always the victim of verbal abuse and sometimes violent attacks. About 20 years later, I met Linda Wolfson, coordinator of a local community college women's center and advisor to the college Gay Straight Alliance Club. Linda Wolfson introduced me to the words and concept of transgender. Linda showed the film Boys Don't Cry about a person born female who lived like a male. When some rednecks found out, they brutally murdered her. The film made me wonder, was my friend Jeff transgender? My synagogue had an assistant rabbi named Rachel who was a lesbian. She inspired in me a sense of awe and wonder of the universe. She got the congregation involved in advocating to legalize gay marriage. In 2006, I thought I met the perfect guy to bring home to meet my parents. He is tall, handsome, kind, artistically talented, has a good job, and he's Jewish. This perfect guy, Israel, let me down gently. He is madly in love with his longtime partner, a black man named John, and they plan to marry as soon as it's legal. On February 27th, 2016, Israel and John got married. They exchanged vows and rings before a justice of the peace, followed by a delicious dinner reception. They invited me, and now we are all friends. Bridgeport was going to have a gay pride parade celebrating the LGBTQ community. I asked one of the organizers of the event, "What does Q stand for?" She answered, "Queer or questioning." I was definitely questioning. What did it say about me that I had a relationship with Jeff, a person with a woman's soul trapped in a man's body? Why were so many of my close woman friends lesbian or bisexual? I know many who had heterosexual marriages before entering into a lesbian relationship. Was there a possibility of a lesbian relationship in my future? LGBTQ people and allies have had a positive impact on my life, from Steve in the high school drama club to Jeff the Diana Ross wannabe, to Rabbi Rachel, who awakened my spirituality, and so many more. I am an LGBTQ ally. That's why I marched in the Gay Pride Parade. And besides, love is love, and it was a lot of fun. Why I marched.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Lesiga, and I am so filled with gratitude today for all the wonderful stories that we've heard from around the world, and for everyone who's tuned in person or on streaming on YouTube. And I just have one thing to say before I begin. Are you ready for an adventure? Yeah. Some are round, some are flat, some are uneven, and some are even droopy, but my mommy's chitskis were pointed, just like two circus heads turned on their side. She swore by the power of Playtex bras to lift and separate her chitskis. It's 1961, I'm 5 years old in Brooklyn, New York. Our kitchen smells of smoky bacon, eggs, and toast. Mommy put my breakfast in front of me and she goes, Ninochka, I'll be right back. And she steps into the next room. And I cry, Mommy, what are we gonna do today? And she comes back and she's wearing a skirt and she is naked from the waist up. And her titties are long like an old lady's. In clothing, they look young and beautiful and perky. And she calmly said, well, when your sisters wake up, we'll go shopping. Daddy comes into the room, and he is not surprised at all that Mommy is topless. He has this goofy grin on his face like he's eating ice cream. He gives her a goodbye smooch, and off he goes to work. My Mommy was beautiful. She had the lightest of blue eyes that danced. She dreamed to be a fashion designer and went to the famous Parsons School of Art and Design. Her favorite dresses had big, wide necklines. At the train station, the man pointed and said, how old is that one? He was looking at me. I was extra large for my age. Mommy leaned a little bit towards him. And she said, she's 5 years old. Her titties popped up just a little bit. He said she rides for free. At the clown show, the ticket man said, tickets, please. Mommy looked into her handbag and she leaned just a little bit and her titties popped up just a little. And the man smiled and he let us in, even though Mommy never handed him a ticket. We dressed up anywhere we went. And Mommy made our dresses, they were matching, they were fitted on the top with cummerbunds and these crinolines that made them extra poofy. My daddy, he got paid on Fridays, and though Mommy was really careful about her money, we ran out of it on Thursday. Instead of cutting out paper dolls, we cut out store coupons. And my older sister would add them up. My mom knew how to have fun. And 11 a.m., we went downstairs. We lived on a busy street with a big sidewalk, and Mommy put me and my younger sister in the Cadillac brand stroller, and my older sister held onto the side of the buggy as we walked. And as we walked, all the other mommies in the neighborhood pointed. They didn't look anything like Mommy. They wore these blouses that were buttoned way up to the neck. And when Mommy spoke Russian to us, they really made bad faces. When we arrived at the butcher shop, Mommy parked the carriage outside and we walked in holding hands. It smelled of kielbasa and garlic. The butcher man, who was wearing a white hat, a white apron, white pants, and a white shirt. Mommy said something to me in Russian, and I don't understand Russian, but I know this one word, morozheno, that's ice cream. I got the sense that if I said the right thing, there would be an ice cream in it for me. Mommy said, a quarter pound of ham, please, sliced not too thin. And he holds up the slice and he dangles it. Is this thick enough? And I cry out, Mommy, I'm hungry. When are we going to eat lunch? And she said, Yunachka, soon, be patient. When we get home, I'll put you lunch. And the man goes back and gets another 2 slices of meat. And me and my 2 sisters, we get free lunch meat. A quarter pound of bologna, please. The man dangles it to show Mommy the thickness. She says, that's great. Mommy, I'm still hungry. When am I going to eat lunch? He goes back and slices another 2 slices for us. Well, every time Mommy ordered, she leaned towards the showcase and her titties popped up just a little bit. And the man, he was smiling just like Daddy did this morning. As we walked home, she said, girls, I'm gonna make you sandwiches for lunch. We got home, she put them in front of us, and I cried out, Mommy, where's the meat? She goes, now, Yunachka, you already had the meat. Here's the lettuce, tomato, cucumber, and mayonnaise. I was so sad, but I didn't say anything because she was kind of right. Years later, coming out on the beach, I was sitting on a blanket with my mother's best friend and her 2 kids, and I was about to eat my sandwich, and they said, wait a minute, do you remember all those years that we got free lunch meat? Molly, her friend, cries out, what butcher is that? And Mommy said, well, you know, the one in our neighborhood, the one on Church Avenue. I never got any free meat from him. Hearing that made me realize that Mommy used her beauty and her sex appeal to provide for the family. She wanted us to have the things and experiences that we couldn't afford. I was so proud of my Mommy. I was no longer sad. I felt so loved. Thank you.
Okay, we've reached the end. Thank you so much to our PechaKucha tellers this evening. And thank you so much to Bill, our own ringmaster, to John, to Suzanne, and Nina. So if you have any questions or comments for the organizer or any of the tellers, please contact them directly. Again, everybody's contact info is in the program. And just a quick note, 2 quick notes, I guess. At the end of each PechaKucha, our committee sends a donation to the global PechaKucha organization that helps them maintain the servers and the software, all the fun back-end stuff to keep the videos alive in perpetuity and keep the story sharing going on. So if you have $1 in your pocket, we ask you drop it on your way out the door, and also save the date For our next Pechakucha, I mentioned earlier, November 14th at the Bijou Theater. Just again, down the pink steps and to the right. We hope to see you there. And then before I say see you next time, the Downtown Cabaret Theater has asked that we help clean up, take your trash with you. There are trash and recycling bins just outside the theater doors. And see you next time. Thank you so much.
Devastating Tokyo in February 2003. As an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration, featuring a special presentation format. 20 images, each for 20 seconds. Moving on while you speak alone. Do not sign for more than for gatherings. Rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age. No matter children, teenager or adult. Presenting something that you like. Ideas, what thoughts about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together, let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh, eh, eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh, 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 eh.
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is like kids make in Turkish.
Dr. Dio no matter what Japanese phrase for the sound of talking. This is Pechakucha. Thank you Asti Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always swung in your place, eating and drinking space. Bar resto gallery, home beach or swimming pool. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh 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 eh.
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are Picky Pals, we are Picky Pals. All over the world, a real network. We are Picky Pals, we are Picky Pals. With wonderful stories at the Picky Nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
Pechakucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
Devastating Tokyo in February 2003. As an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration, featuring a special presentation format. 20 images, each for 20 seconds. Moving on while you speak alone. Do not sign for more than for gatherings. Rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age. No matter children, teenager or adult. Presenting something that you like. Ideas, what thoughts about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together, let's say 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh 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 eh.
Pechakucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
Pechakucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, Pechakucha is like kids make in Turkish.
Nimdapte dio onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for this one that talking this is Pechakucha. Thank you Asti Dema for this concert for short and cause our presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always swung in your place, eating and drinking space. Barresto gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Sharing a relax way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. Pechakucha, Pechakucha, eh 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 eh.
Pechakucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are Pechakuchas, we are Pechakuchas. All over the world, a real network. We are Pechakuchas, we are Pechakuchas. With wonderful stories at the Pechakucha Nights.
めちゃくちゃストーリーテリングのフォーマット20秒のスライド